Hey there. Welcome to Spiritual Unraveling with Ashley and Nate, a podcast about the sometimes messy process of spiritual awakening. We invite you to listen in as we discuss spiritual topics and themes showing up in our personal lives and out in the broader world. We promise to always bring our grounded and lived experiences to the exploration of these topics. We know that the process of awakening can sometimes be lonely and even scary. It is our intention to remind you that you're not going through this alone and that we're all in this together. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Welcome everyone to Spiritual Unraveling with Ashley and Nate. And on today's podcast, we are going to be discussing spring energy and what we can do with this abundance of energy and how we can harness it. And also discussing examples from our own life where maybe we've had some pitfalls or just noticing that with the intense energy that's around right now, that if we're not careful with where we are focusing our energy and setting clear intentions and using our practices, that manifestation and things coming into our realities, it feels like that stuff is happening very quickly right now, and that there is just a lot of energy on the planet since the spring equinox. And as we're moving into April, there's going to be just a lot of shifting going on. And then there's also a lot of stuff happening in the outside world. So on today's podcast, we're going to be talking all things spring. What do you think, Ash?
Well, yeah, we kind of got quiet before we got on to really kind of go in and listen for what was something we could talk about that would be useful for us and maybe anybody who's listening. And what I got was spring cleaning. And we had been talking earlier about the way that the chaotic energy in the culture, in the world, in the atmosphere is kind of creating a energy of like being scattered a little bit in me. I'll just talk about myself. I feel a little scattered. I feel a little pulled into the chaos a bit. And it's made me feel like a little less grounded. I'm doing less of my practice or finding it more difficult to practice, more difficult to find that quiet. And then when I do take the time to really focus, bring my attention from that scattered place into focus, go into earth energy, go into a grounded, quiet place, I'm actually feeling like that space is sort of more potent than ever. So I'm getting synchronicities and messages and feeling very guided and supported there. And then I'll sort of come up out of that feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, and then I kind of get scattered again. So I'm finding myself in this pattern of that process. And so when I got the message spring cleaning, it sort of was this energy of, and when we think about spring cleaning, decluttering, and I have been doing that some in my life, my physical material life, but it's also psychic energy. It feels like spring cleaning, like clearing out the cluttered psychic energy, coming back, remembering our grounding practices, remembering our meditation practices, and also what's been coming through is really finding and carving out space for creative practice seems to be really shifting out. It really shifts me out of that scattered energy pretty quickly. So that's also been kind of something that's coming through.
Yeah, the scattered energy I definitely identify with. And I think that there is just a lot of energy flowing in right now. And so when you get to that scattered place and then you kind of forget your practices, it does feel like you can get yourself kind of far down a certain path. I got into like weird conspiracy theory YouTube things and I was like, wait, what am I doing? And reminding yourself to do like the importance of starting your day with just really simple, easy practices, like get your feet on the earth if you can, or sit quietly. And you don't even need to do, we're advocates of deep meditation, but honestly, before you pick up your phone, you're lying in bed, take 10 deep breaths. Get connected to your body. Feel your body. When you stand up and you get out of bed, feel your feet on the ground, and just remembering that some of these really easy things will help you to be less scattered and kind of come back to your center. And I have been fighting a cold for like the last 2 weeks, and I feel resonant with the spring cleaning idea because it really is felt to me like have been decluttering my body. I'm in this like crazy detox period, and also just being very low energy. I was mentioning to you how much that brought me into presence and surrender, because I literally didn't have enough energy for multiple days other than to just kind of do one or two household things that I needed to do. And then the rest was kind of sitting and being with myself, being in my body, my sick body, which was detoxing, and then being present. Also just understanding that this is a part of the process, that every once in a while you need to do a detox, a purge, a cleanse. And that's both for our physical bodies and for our physical space. And I agree that whether it's mental, physical, psychological, spiritual, the way that we manage those areas of our lives and how cluttered or disorganized our thinking or our spaces are, it definitely translates into how things show up in your world. You know, when you're disorganized in your thinking, your life is disorganized. It's really hard to get things done. I mean, when you are having trouble focusing, just simple things is really difficult. So yeah, I definitely feel the call to really being intentional about your energy and your focus right now. And I loved that you brought in creativity. My kids, like intuitively, I didn't even push it on them, but in the last 2 weeks, they've just been pulling out all the art supplies and taking time in creating. And I notice it immediately that their energy changes, and then I get to jump in, or my wife gets to jump in. And it's such a good way to just bring you back into the present moment and to tap into the creative energy that's very much present in spring. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just going to say a little more about it, which is the idea of presence, being connected to your creative energy, your joy, your passion, like giving yourself it, because I can feel myself as the world feels a little like, it just feels like there's a little bit of energy of like there's an impending doom, like something's just around the corner, something's just about to happen. And there's a lot of content out there that feeds that. So it leaves you in almost a place of survival mode. And presence is almost the opposite of that, right? There's just only the now. And the easiest way for me to get into that is to get into a creative space or get into my body. There's something really important about using your conscious awareness to shift your focus. If you're feeling this way, if you're finding yourself feeling scattered, or you're feeling yourself being pulled by that impending doom energy, that might not be the right way to say it, but I can't think of a better way to say it. But so you're sort of in a holding pattern, or you're feeling survival mode-y or scattered, then really using your conscious awareness to focus your energy into something that is more in presence, bringing yourself more into presence. That doesn't have to be meditation. So I'm just repeating what you're saying, but I'm just saying it again. I'm almost saying it for myself to really remember that we're not at the mercy of what's happening in the world, actually. We really have this capacity to focus our attention. And when we declutter, when we maybe stop consuming content or limit the content we're consuming, or we declutter our spaces, it's easier to take those 10 deep breaths, like you were saying, really simplify that focus and remember, okay, yeah, this is what helps me feel grounded. These are the practices that help me stay present. That just seems more important than ever right now to make those choices.
Yeah, totally. You and I both, we took a minute to just kind of tap in, and spring energy and decluttering came up for you. And what was coming up for me is very similar to this. It's a little more on the woo-woo or metaphysical side. But what came through strongly for me is that the energy right now for manifesting and pulling things into your life is really profound, and intention and attention is just so key. So I just want to double down on this and kind of maybe lean a little more in on the metaphysical side, and just say that there is a very strong call right now to come into your own energy and to be very strategic and deliberate with where you are putting your focus and where you are choosing to put your attention. And then I would say even more important, and this could go back to a very simple practice that starts at the beginning of the day, which is set an intention. I would like to experience peace and calm and clarity in my world today. That is huge because it's really easy to even do some of the practices, but if you don't necessarily set the intention, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I'm up for the salad bar or the buffet of life, which is okay. Sometimes we are, and that's fine. If you're feeling really resilient, do that. But I think what we're talking about is that with really intense energies, and as you were describing in the outside world, in politics, I think this energy of chaos or perceived chaos is very up right now for many people. This is a time where I think our resilience is really challenged. So falling back on and relying on core kind of fundamentals of how we balance our energetics is huge. And I think intention is one of it's really easy to kind of forget that. Setting intention at early parts of the day and then checking back in. Sometimes that's why it's nice to write it down if you have a journal, checking back in like at the midday or the dinner time and say, how am I doing with this? Where's my energy? These are just good ways, good solid practices that will put you back into the captain of your own energetic ship as opposed to being a passenger, right? Are you steering the ship or are you in the back for a ride? With the world the way it is right now, I want to be steering the ship. Yeah.
Totally. I like that. And I think sometimes you mentioned this like idea of like you can do your practices, but where are they are they really grounded? So when you're doing that intention setting everything, it's almost like you want to really bring in the emotions or the feeling of it and really ground it. And the word that keeps coming up is like disrupt the status quo through this focused energy. So with your intention setting, with your focus, you're disrupting this your automatic pilot, and that actually is a very our attention is so powerful, right? Where we're focusing our attention is what's creating our reality. And so really almost doing it as like an experiment, maybe even doing it as like a joy experiment or like a more lighthearted experiment, taking it out of like, oh, I have to do this intention setting as part of my serious practice, but like really bringing a lighthearted sense to it. I feel like that has actually been something that's been really working for me. Is one of my practices lately has been like really noticing where the magic is happening, like noticing synchronicities, noticing where I feel like nature is talking to me or, birds are speaking to me or where I'm, where my attention is being pulled into nature. And it's like that, just having that as a focus creates such a more lighthearted way of walking through the day, as opposed to where else my focus could be, at any given moment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of those things that it's worth repeating and reminding ourselves that magic happens in the present moment. It does not happen in the future or the past, right? You have to be present and in the moment. And as you're saying, kind of in this almost joyous expectation of serendipity for it to show up. And it's a very beautiful choice to make amongst lots of other options in terms of how you're choosing to focus your energy or how you're choosing to feel. I did want to go back to what you were talking about, the kind of creating a sense of playfulness or ease around how you're choosing to intend or how you're choosing to use your attention. And I'm going to just also go right at the people who are feeling really angry and violated and pissed off at everything that's happening right now. Because I'm there. I move into that space pretty easily too with all the crazy stuff that's happening in the world. And I'm going to say a radical act of disobedience is controlling your attention, is choosing to not give it where they want it. Because you have to look at the way the world operates. The power systems right now are vying for your attention. that tells you something. That attention is inherently very powerful. Otherwise, they wouldn't give two craps about it, because they don't really give two craps about anything that we do, the plebes, So that right there lets you know this is important. It's valuable. It's highly valuable. So an act of defiance, an act of protest can be to limit where you put your attention, especially in anything mainstream or fear-mongering, and say, I can tap into my feeds of information here and there, but I'm not going to dwell. And then I am going to intentionally, as again, like an act of protest, I'm going to look at beautiful things. I'm going to go against mainstream culture right now and what it's telling me to do. I'm going to hope, I'm going to have beauty, I'm going to walk in nature, whatever it is for you. Yeah, I just kind of want to acknowledge that could be a way in which we can, maybe not so playfully, take back our power, but do it in a way where we can harness some of that frustration with how things are currently unfolding and say, this is the way I'm going to choose to deal with this. I'm going to create more beauty in the world. I'm going to create more connection in the world. I'm going to connect to my own community and foster beauty and connection and harmony here. And that is an actual act of protest and defiance against the kind of stuff that we're coming up against right now.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up community. I actually want to just totally clarify, because I know this is not where you're coming from, but I just want to say it, which is we're not talking about bypassing and just going into love and light. We're we're not talking about that. And I actually feel like the more you're present with the energies that are on the planet right now through your awareness, the digestion of what's happening right now, the processing can happen in presence in a way that doesn't scatter you, disconnect you, or overwhelm you. And I think because there is so much in transition, there's so much that's unraveling, that's dismantling, that where I'm feeling a lot of grounding is actually in community. And it's sharing vulnerably in community. It's actually in this we're togetherness feeling. And that feels like a little spark of the silver lining or the newness that can come from the dismantling, is this kind of coming together in community and in reality, sort of in our truth, not in a, sort of when everything's fine, when you have the status quo, you can sort of skim the surface in life. You can sort of walk through life with your little grudges or your little victimhood, and it's not that big of a deal. And I think right now it's like, okay, we're really working with some big energies around victimhood, working some big energies around powerlessness or whatever. So it's okay. What is coming up in me? And just finding people to share that with, really connecting around whatever's coming up so we can move through it together. That feels huge for me right now.
I totally agree. And I didn't think we were talking about spiritual bypassing, and you're just giving me my opening to talk my piece around that. I hate that term so much. I just think it's such a weird spiritual, metaphysical shame spiral that gurus or social influencers throw around. There is no spiritual bypassing, people. You can't get away from any of it. You're going to die and you're going to have a life review. If you didn't figure your shit out, guess what? You are going to be the one who shares it with you gently, patting you on the back and being like, yeah, you didn't get that one. So I don't worry about I don't necessarily worry about that, but I do agree that we're not talking about burying our head in the sand here. This is it's a response to what is happening right now, and it's a way that we are taking back agency, and we're really choosing for ourselves how we are going to be in the world. And when you were talking about everything that's happening, the word that just kept coming up for me is, this is a time of reconciliation. I mean, even if you wanted to bypass and put your head in the sand, it ain't going to happen. Like, everything is coming up to be reconciled. It is all coming up to be looked at, to be acknowledged, and I believe ultimately to be transformed, broken down, digested, transformed, and we're going to rebuild. That's a process. I don't think it's going to happen overnight at all. And as someone who is like literally in the midst of healing right now and purging, it is not fun, right? And socially, this is not a fun process, this reconciliation, this reckoning But again, taking back our power in terms of how we navigate ourselves through this process and really, really managing your energetics. And when we're talking about this, it's talking about being gentle with yourself, nervous system management. And it could be spiritual because that's our lens and that's the stuff we love, but it could be not spiritual. It could just be hiking. It could be driving in the car and listening to music that uplifts you and singing in the shower. It could be dancing. It could be watching your kids play and laughing. But it's just, I think the call right now is to not let yourself get pulled so easily into all of the negativity because there is just so much of it. So take the things that you know work, your tried and true, and we can also acknowledge, you and I talked about this, these might be moving targets. You might have to experiment a little bit because some of the tried and true things aren't working as well as they used to. But trying to find things that are bringing you peace or harmony or community, as you said, and just a little bit more joy in your life. I think it's such a powerful tool right now.
That was really cool. I love how you articulate things. And what it made me realize that may be happening on a collective level. It's certainly happening with me, and it's scary. And I think it's happening with you. And I also think it's scary for you. But it may be happening on a collective level, which is this realization that we can't just trust the structures, the system that's in place in the way that we used to, that we all just kind of trusted. Oh, the government's doing what the government's doing. And, all these structures are here to support us, to be human. And as that all breaks down, what's coming up, at least for me personally, is a new feeling of empowerment, of just individual empowerment. And that, it sounds really great, but it actually comes with a lot of fear. It comes with a lot of kind of being on new legs, just being in like a new way of being. And it comes with some anger that we were disconnected from that empowerment to begin with, that we were taught to trust powers outside of ourselves that didn't have our best interest at heart. So there's just this whole the reckoning, the reclamation, it's all about coming back into reclaiming something that was always ours to begin with, that's always been there. And really learning how to embody that and learning how to live from that place, learning how to relate to each other from that place. It's all very new right now in my experience. I'm feeling the newness of that. And I just wonder how many people are aware of it because it's happening. It is just happening. You can be aware of it. You cannot be aware of it. It is happening. We are reclaiming our sovereignty, our personal empowerment. And we can talk about what that looks like, but I'm just wondering what you think about that.
Yeah, I love that. I totally agree. And you just said it there. If you didn't say it, I was going to say it. I was like, where's it? She's got to say sovereignty. This is, it's one of our favorite words, but it really is. It's this idea that everyone is being handed their sovereignty, and some of us are accepting it with excitement, intention, and grace. And I do think that there is a large percentage of people who just don't know what to do with it. And it's very frightening because nobody has given us the sovereignty instruction manual. I think it lives in us when we're quiet and we do some of our practices and we really tap in. You get it. The manual's in there. It's you. It's in your body. But it's we have been so indoctrinated to give our power away that it can feel really frightening and disorienting right now. And you spoke really beautifully about this whole breakdown process. And the other aspect of it that I wanted to bring up that has been coming up for me a lot lately is just grief. A ton of grief and sadness about how violated we have been, our rights, our power, how violated the rights, the power, the actual physical safety of vulnerable people in our world. And that on some level, we always knew it was happening in pockets, but we're just seeing that it was happening. It's happening on such a big level. And there is a lot of sadness and grief that I think is still coming up to be processed right now, and also shows up as anger and other things as well. But it's bringing some awareness to it can really help you navigate those feelings, because when they come up, they kind of feel untethered because you're just like, why am I feeling this way? I don't get it. But it's like, it's because it's this collective reckoning, as you were saying, that's happening, and allowing it to be processed, I think, is really powerful right now, and to not turn away from it. And if you're not able to fully step into it, I would say watch a sad movie, read a sad book, give yourself a good cry, because it's going to all come out. It's just all stuck emotion that is ready to be processed. So yeah, it is such a strange and powerful time. I mean, there is just a lot of energy of transformation right now on the planet.
Yeah, I feel like that grief and that rage and that fear, I think those are the three major ones that I've tapped into and then also see in my community, in my world, my friends, my clients. I can feel this kind of almost in myself. I feel resistance sometimes to get quiet, because I think there's a part of me that knows if I get quiet, if I really let go, if I am going to touch into those feelings. We can't move to the next phase without processing and going through those feelings. And I can also see it in some friends. And, my friends that are actively in their practice are actually like literally manifesting their dream life right now. Like things are happening at a really rapid pace. And then I also see, and one is not better than the other. It's just the isness of it all. But I can also see, and I can feel this in myself a little bit, the resistance to it is actually almost like making those feelings kind of activate. So like there's frustration that can be accessing that rage, or there can be a hopelessness that can help you access that grief. And I know that as soon as you just land back in an alignment and a ground in your body, you feel that support, you feel that resonance. It's like then the energies can start just moving through however they need to move through. And so I'm just seeing this like in real life. It's not just words, it's not concepts, like the actual lived experience of how you can work with the energies. But I don't know if any of us are not in this process right now. I think it's a collective transition.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can escape it. It's happening. Yeah, well, and as we're getting close to the end here, I think what you just said very easily maps on to what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, which is think about decluttering the emotions that are waiting there to be processed. And I think is frightening as that proposition is to some of us, it is where all the power is. There is a huge amount of untapped potential and power sitting right there if you're willing to look at the hard things, process them, and then start letting the energy move through you. This is an insane time. I agree. I have seen other people right now manifesting when the world is kind of in a chaotic place and there's so much energy around. If you can harness yourself and get clean and get clear, get your intention and attention and focus onto something that you're actually trying to pull into the world, you're going to be really surprised at how fast it comes in, because there is a lot of potential right now. And I think a good starting place is to just acknowledge some of the stuck emotions. There's not a lot of work to be done there. It's just turning and looking at it and letting them kind of come up and move through you, and start that process of emotional decluttering so that you can harness some of this energy.
Spring cleaning.
Spring cleaning. Hey everyone, we hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions or feedback for us, please send us an email at spiritualunraveling@gmail.com. If you'd like to learn more about what we're both up to, you can follow Ashley at www.mountainmeditationgroup.com. And you can find more about what I'm doing at spiritual-stewardship.com. We hope you have a great day.